Howdy, everybody. It's Patrick Kirby from Do Good Better Consulting with another guest expert training. Hey, get your inner geek ready. Get your inner nerd ready. We're going to talk website stuff for your organization. And I could not be happier to have our guest expert on today. It's CJ Gilbert. He's an author. He's a speaker. He is a website guru. And oh, by the way, he's a podcaster as well. He does Ask a Web Geek. It's podcasting. It's on YouTube. It's a Facebook page. We've got our expert in the house today. CJ, how are you today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Outstanding. Well, we are very excited to have you because a lot of nonprofits do a lot of different things. They wear a ton of hats. Most of the time, they are not website experts. And so when somebody has a website question, I just kind of throw up my hands and I go, I don't know. So I searched the internets and I found you. And I choose you, CJ. Why don't you give everybody kind of an intro on who you are, what you do, how you got to where it is, and we're going to dive in with some content for everybody today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. My name is CJ Gilbert. I've been a web developer for over 20 years. Don't worry, though. I like to say that I can speak geek and normal human. So I will translate for you. So this won't be a conversation full of geek speak. This will be a conversation full of normal human people talking. But we'll be talking about some geek stuff a little bit, but it's really just tools to help your organization do better. And that's what I'm all about. I started my business, Gilbert Studios, as a web design firm in 2004. And I was coming out of the business world. I was coming out of the insurance industry, actually. And I was hurt on the job, and through a series of events, had to do something else. And they're like, what else do you know how to do? And I've been a geek all my life and was building websites since 1995. And that was the natural thing to do. And so I opened up my own business in 2004. So it's been an interesting road. I've been studying customer service, been studying sales, been studying business and marketing, and really been serving business owners and entrepreneurs and nonprofits and organizations and speakers, coaches, and authors since that time.
I love it. This is going to be so invaluable, I think, to a ton of people who are just trying to wrap their head around what are a couple of things that I can do or look at just to kind of start with understanding the basics of not only your website, but understanding what a tool this is to benefit your organization. And wonderfully, you have 5 little points that you'd like to bring up today that might be in a book you might have written. But let's kind of start at the start. You know, one of the things that you talk about in your book is setting goals and really talking about what are your goals of your website. I'd love to get your thoughts on goals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is always the place where I began the conversation. You know, I helped hundreds of business owners, and the very first thing that we would do when we sat down to talk about their website is to talk about their goals for their website. What do you want it to do? What do you want your customers to get out of it? What do you want to get out of it? And a lot of my business owners had ideas, but a lot of them didn't have ideas. I got kind of a blank stare back. I don't know what it should do. And I realized that was a common theme. Most business owners know they needed a website, but they didn't know what to do with it. And so I was kind of writing through that process, and I sat down and my expectation was just to write a page or two of what was possible, just some ideas of what you could do with it. And I like to say I accidentally wrote a book, and it's called 5 Golden Keys to Sharpen Your Website.
Yes.
And this is the 5 points we'll be going over today. And that first key in the book is your goals and your demographic targeting. That is to say, this is what I refer to as the 2 most important questions. Number 1, what are your goals for your website? What do you want it to do? And it's okay if in this moment, at this very beginning of the conversation, you don't have any idea. You're like, I have no idea what I want it to do. That's okay. That's what this entire conversation is for. Hopefully by the end of our conversation together, you'll have some goals and you'll be able to go back to the beginning and start over again. And this time you'll have some clarity. You'll know exactly what you want it to do. So it could be a bunch of things. It could be sales. It could be education. It could be resources. It could be entertainment. What do you want to get out of your website? And what do you want your customer to get out of your website? Could be the same thing. Could be 2 different things.
I think a lot of people in the nonprofit world are trying to do too much with their website. They're throwing everything on there, whatever, without getting consideration on, what's the purpose of having your website up and running? Is it for donors? Is it for clients? And then what type of donor, what type of client? I think it's a really wonderful starting point on how to kind of think about all things website out of the gate. And the who it's for, even talking about who specifically are you targeting, and what's the outcome that you want after you sort of take a peek at your website, right?
Absolutely. That would be the second most important question. In fact, you might even say that is the most important question. Who is your target market? Who is your audience? As specifically as possible, you want to identify as much as you can about that specific person. It could be based on gender or geographic location or education or so many of the different, all the different pieces of the puzzle. As many of those things as you can identify is best. And the purpose is not to exclude anyone, but actually to do the exact opposite, to get as many people involved as possible. And it's a weird kind of counterintuitive thing. I talk to a lot of people in the business world, and they're always saying these clever things like, in a networking meeting, the dentist will stand up and say, I want to talk to anybody with teeth. And I want to meet anybody with a spine. And that's funny, and we all laugh, ha 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 ha. But the problem is our brains don't think of anybody. When you ask someone to think for anybody, somebody, anybody, you get nobody. Your brain thinks of nobody and no one. Mm-hmm. But if you do the exact opposite, if you ask for something so specifically, your brain does an amazing thing. It will think of someone even if it's not an exact match. It'll do this filtering thing. For example, if I say to you, I want to talk to the lady that goes to your church on Thursday night. She's going through a divorce. She's driving a minivan and she has 3 kids. That's who I want to talk to. Now your brain is immediately going to start this filtering process. Who do I know that fits that criteria? Mm-hmm. And it's going to substitute details. Oh, this lady I'm thinking of, well, she actually goes on Wednesday, not Thursday. She's actually just finished her divorce and is dating again. She has 2 kids, not 3 kids. She drives an SUV, not a minivan. But guess what? You still thought of someone. And ironically, she didn't fit any of the exact criteria that I said to you, but your brain saw it as close enough to do this little substitution thing, and you still thought of someone. So the point is, if you can laser focus, I like to imagine a bullseye with concentric rings. If we're aiming for that bullseye in the center, you're still going to hit people in those rings as it goes out, and you'll still reach more people. You'll reach more people with a narrower audience.
It's unbelievably, we talk about this all the time, how to get more donors. Tell your story to as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. But be very specific about what you do and what you're asking for. And all of a sudden, that clarity becomes explosions when you're actually talking with donor-specific groups or trying to capture the attention of donors in a very crowded nonprofit space. And really part of that is getting donations. I think in your words, you use the word sales. But sales, right off the bat, is an incredibly important topic when you're talking about your website, mm-hmm. Nation specifically to the nonprofit world. But talk about sales. Why are we talking about sales from a website?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, there's 3 components that I talk about a lot with a website, and this is how I want it to boil down to be seen as a tool that you can use for your organization. And the 3 main points that I talk about are your search, your sales, and your service. So we can jump right into the sales piece. Mm-hmm. And this might be for most people what they identify as their number 1 goal for their website, mm-hmm. to make more sales, to get more donations, to get more eyeballs on their organization. Those are wonderful goals. Those are fantastic goals. You want to part people with their dollars so you can put them to better use, right? Yeah. That's fantastic. So here's the key on how that happens. It's this magic phrase. People choose the familiar. People choose the familiar. So what we want to do is we want people to come to your website, spend a few minutes watching your video, looking through your pictures, seeing your staff, seeing the products or services that you sell, seeing the people that you help with your organization. And while that process is happening, they're developing a familiar feeling for you. And what's interesting is we've discovered that people make a buying decision or a donation decision based entirely on how they feel about something. We think they make those decisions based on logic and facts from our brain, but that's not true at all. We make decisions entirely emotionally depending on how we feel about something. So I say on your website, do both. Give them the facts and the figures, give them the details that they need, but also give them the heart. Let them really get to know who you are, the people that you're serving, the reason that you're doing it, because that's really what develops that familiar feeling. And when they're ready to decide to donate or not, that's what they rely on.
Here's all the impact we make at a nonprofit. These are all the people we reach and the people we serve. But here's a story that's going to get you right in the feels, because you are learning about the personality of our organization through what we do visually, video-wise, story-wise. That's the real sort of sales pitch, because once you hit them there, you say, well, I approve of your nonprofit, so I am going to give you a financial donation because I approve of it. And that has a lot to do with that sales and building that emotional. And again, people choose familiar. Don't go crazy with kind of like these pie in the sky sort of philosophical things. What do people know about? Do they know about kids and cats and dogs or services or disabilities or whatever that is? You know your audience there. But how do people find you? I mean, really, if you want an audience to get to where they can be emotionally connected to you, they need to find you, right? So part of what I think is really super important, and I like, there's all these are important, believe you me, but the findability is the one thing that the nonprofit world really is worried about, to stick up above the fray, find themselves on that first or second page of Google search, or just be noticed. And search is a real main component of kind of what you're talking about and what you teach professionally, right?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. We talk about your search, and basically what that means is, how do people find you? How are they getting to you? So before I go to how they're finding you, let's talk about how it has been done, how it's typically been done. And for 150 years, it was the yellow pages. You opened up your organization, you got yourself in the yellow pages. That's just what you did. And you were prepared to pay $300 to $500 a month, whatever it was, to get in the book. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, like I have, but those yellow pages have been getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And you know, most people told me they would just pick them up off their porch and throw them in the recycle bin. And then a couple weeks ago, I got a postcard through the door that said, we're no longer bringing the yellow pages to you. We still make them. If you want one, we'll give one to you. But otherwise, we don't do that anymore. And what's the reason for that? It's because everything is online. Everything is online. We've all got one of these devices in our hands. And so this is what people are using to find what they need. So let's talk about how that works and how we can make that work to our advantage. So when someone picks up one of these devices and they ask it to find something, there's a couple ways that happens. So number one, it depends on the device that they're using. So if you're an iPhone user, you're going to be searching through the Apple system or the Apple Maps. If you're an Android user, you're going to be searching through the Google Maps and the Google world. So first of all, you need to make sure that you can be found on those maps. If you have a brick and mortar business or organization where people can actually come to your office, you have got to be listed on all of those maps so you can get a pin dropped on your location and people can use these devices to get directions to you. And this has become the new yellow pages. It's this concept of these directory listings that you may not even know exist, that are even out there, because about 100 people had this idea all at the same time. I know what I'll do. I'll make a website and it'll be the next yellow pages online, and I'll just put every business and organization I can find into it and make mine the biggest and the best. Google's right up there at the top. Yelp is right up there at the top, but there's 60 to 80 other companies that are competing in this space. And you don't even know they've found you and they've added you to their listing, but you don't know if it's correct or not, because they don't know if it's correct or not. So one of the things we do is we offer a tool where you can run this free scan and just see where you're showing up and how it's listed out there. That's the first step. What is it now? How do we can figure out how to fix it next, but first we got to know, what is it? Where you show up, where you don't, if it's the wrong phone number, if it's the right number, if it's the right address. Those are the things we want to fix right off the bat.
And you'd be surprised at how many either organizations that I call or organizations that have recently moved or things that, and there's no update and you're getting the wrong phone number, you're calling the wrong business, you're calling you're showing up to the wrong, because people don't use, again, in order to your point, nobody's busting out the old 14-page map in the car to try to find. They're using their phones. And so if you don't have this thing up to date, you're going to go on a wild goose chase and then they can't find you. They get frustrated. Then they blame you for the idea. I mean, you don't want to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
And really, that's a really interesting segue into providing customer service. The act of just updating your information to make it easy for potential donors and sponsors and volunteers or customers to find you is an act of customer service. And I know it's the final pillar that you talk about a lot is, what's the service mentality of your website? What does that produce? And I'd love you to talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. This is something that I get really excited about because it's really overlooked. I don't think it's thought as much as sales. People know that they can use their website for sales and getting more dollars, right? They know that already. But what they're missing is that they can use their website to save dollars and make more dollars. And what I mean by that is, think of it like this. All day, every day, you have a receptionist in your organization, and she's picking up the phone and she's answering the same questions all day, every day to every caller. Yes, we're open till 5. Yes, we accept credit card. Yes, we're down the street. Here's the directions. Yes, we're open till 5. Yes, we accept credit cards. So ask her, what are those questions that she gets asked all day, every day? And then make sure it's on your website. Because what's going to happen is this is going to become a service to everybody. All of a sudden, the 100 people that are calling you, that number is going to drop with those questions are going to drop down to about 10 because a lot of those people can go straight to your website to get the information that they need. This is an amazing thing that happens because it helps your customer become faster, better, more efficient, which they appreciate. But it also helps your receptionist and the person answering the phone, which could be you in some organizations. It's going to help you save so much more time because instead of having to answer that same question 100 times, maybe you're only answering it 10 times. Of course, people are going to still call and they're still going to answer the same questions. That's totally okay. But think about the people that are getting the answer to that question without having to pick up the phone. That's what's going to save you a lot of time because that's going to compound itself over that course of the day and the week and the month. And all of a sudden your efficiency and your productivity is going to jump up and you're going to be able to get a lot more done when you're thinking of how to use your website as a tool to increase your efficiency.
You know, some people want to house their brochures, their annual reports, their information about all sort of events up on their website. What are a couple of other things that you would recommend, at least to just say, all right, what are some really interesting things that you could put up there? I would imagine a fax page is probably up there in the list of pantheon of important items that you wanted just to check off your list to house.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love a frequently asked questions page for 3 reasons specifically. Number 1, you're answering those questions that people are asking you. They are asking the questions. You want to provide those answers for them. Great place to do it. I also recommend that you have some should be asked questions. That is to say, people may not know enough yet about your organization to know all the questions they should be asking. So answer the questions they are asking, and then also answer the questions that if they knew better, if they knew enough about it, they'd also ask you these questions.
That's brilliant, by the way. That's the most brilliant, subtle marketing piece I have heard in a very long time of things you should be asking if you haven't. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's off the charts awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm stealing that as an idea because it's brilliant.
Absolutely do it. Yeah, I call that your should be asked questions.
Yes.
Because it's doing everybody a service. It does them a service because they're like, oh, I didn't know I needed to ask that, but now that you've said that, man, that is important. I wish I would have known that. And they're appreciative to you for giving them the information. So now you're providing an education. It's not just a sales message, it's an education at the same time. They're getting their questions answered and they're learning more about the whole process than they even realized they needed to.
Yeah.
What a value to them. And here's the third hidden benefit is keywords. You're able to talk on your frequently asked questions page about topics and words and concepts that really don't fit anywhere else in your website, which means this is an amazing place for you to have extra keywords. Imagine that you put on a page on your website the answer to this question, and then 3 weeks from now, somebody types into Google that question. Google's going to say, well, hey, that question is answered right over here on this organization's frequently asked questions page. And that's how they find you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know not everybody comes to your website through the front door? They're asking Google a question. Google says, well, your answer is right over here. Click. Now they're on your frequently asked questions page. They get the answer. They get the should be asked question. Oh, I didn't even know I needed to know about that. That's super helpful. Where am I? Who are these people? What do they do? And they click on your homepage, and now they're reading through, and that's how they get introduced to you, because you've already provided value, because you already answered that question, and we were able to embed more great, valuable, natural keywords into your website because of that.
That's really a wonderful. It also gives you an opportunity, because people are coming in at different angles from your website. They're not coming through that front page, that first page, that landing page, which is a wonderful thought. Just to keep that in the back of your brain, make sure you're branding your FAQ page, right? And make sure you're branding every piece of it so that people are curious on ways to connect and learn more and talk about something that they didn't know they wanted to talk about. And that gives you the luxury of talking on that front page or the other couple of pages, your authentic conversational self as an organization, right? So you can get all the technical mumbo jumbo stuff out of the way so that when people do come through the front door, they see this as, I like this organization. I feel connected to it. Back to your sales piece is that, I'm choosing the familiar, that you're using familiar words that aren't techie. But if I have a technical question, I know that I can find it here, here, and here.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. So this is really helpful because, again, I love working in the number 5. It's just a thing that I have. And just establishing your goals of what your website should be doing.
Yes.
It is really establishing who your website is for. Is it donors? Is it clients? Is it the mass public? Is it just somebody who has no idea what you do as an organization? Who is that? And then that 3 pillars of S words, right? That sales, that service, and that search, I think, are so critical just to kind of organize your website's life, which I think is really, really important. One of the questions is now that you've got all this stuff bantering in my brain, one of the questions that I just end up wanting to ask is there ever too much information that you can put on your website? Because that's a lot of stuff to do. Is too much too much?
That's a really great question. And I'm going to say yes and no, and here's why.
That's a fair answer. I like
right?
that. Yeah.
If I had to just give you one of those answers, I would say no. You can't. It's not possible to put too much information on your website, but it is possible to put it in the wrong place. And here's what I mean by that. We have to balance these 2 different audiences, if you will, with our website. The most important in one respect is that human user, that human person that's coming to our website to get to know us and learn more about us. And the other one that we have to balance again is that robot that is Google, that's always looking at all the information on every page. And they're kind of the bridge between that human person that's looking for something and us. So Google is really what's connecting that bridge and bringing the people in. So we have to appeal to the robot, but we have to appeal to the person too. So here's how we do that. You don't want someone to come into your website, to your homepage, and just receive a deluge of information, because people will freeze up if you give them too much at once. Here's all the information you ever want to know. They'll be like, and they'll back away. They'll get scared and they'll run away.
It's like going on a first date and you're like, let me tell you the history about me with all the dirty details forever. And you're like, whoa, wait a second. I just wanted to order a drink first. Like, get out of the way, right?
Absolutely. Like, right. It's like, hi, I'm CJ. You want to get married? It's not the right step. It's not the right place yet, right? So you have to allow people to request the information that they want a little piece at a time. So they come to the homepage, and it's got to be super basic. It's got to be real clean. You've got to think headlines and bullet points. No paragraphs on your homepage. And it's headlines and bullet points. Here's who we are. Here's the 3 main things we do. Here's some testimonials, and let people say we're trained now that they're going to click on something they want to learn more about. So here's the 3 main things we do. Oh, I want to learn more about this one. And then when they click that, that is them saying, tell me more about that. And then they come to the next page. Here you can have a headline, maybe 5 bullet points. Maybe you get 1 paragraph on that next piece. Again, we still don't want to give them too much too soon, but give them a little bit more because they asked for it. And then there's another read more link there. And if they want to, they'll say, tell me more about that. And then they'll click read more. Then you can give them all the information because they've said, tell me more, tell me more. And once they've asked you, tell me more, then they're expecting to get more. So that's when you can send them to that big page with all the information on it and still be thinking kind of in terms of headlines and bullet points, but you can now supplement that with the multiple paragraphs of information. And this does the benefit of all of the above. Google doesn't care which page the information is on. They'll still see all the information that you have on, let's call it that page 3. Google knows it's in there so that when someone's looking for information, they know you've got it. But we're not scaring away that human user who's coming into our homepage, looking around, poking around, wanting to learn more. Let them ask, let them click, tell me more, and then give it to them.
I love it. And the only caveat that I would give as the fundraising person in the back of my brain, always have a button there that people can donate whenever they get antsy in their pantsy, regardless of how much information they have. Get a button up there that they can go click and say, I want to give lots of money because I don't even need to get to page 3. I buy into what you said at page 2. So make sure you have one of those.
Yes, and
CJ,
bonus tip.
This is brilliant stuff.
Can I jump in with a bonus tip on that donate button?
Yeah. Yes.
Make sure it's the same button and it looks the same and it's in the same place on every page. And then if you have a long page of information, it is okay to repeat that button in several places as that page goes. Make sure it's the same button. If it's a blue button on this page, make sure it's a blue button on every page. Don't let that human brain think, is this a different button? Is this something else? Let them know it's the same button and they're seeing it over and over and over again. That's okay. They won't mind. They won't feel pressured. They'll feel comfortable. They'll feel familiar that when they're ready, that's the button they're going to click.
Yes, yes, a million times yes. Brilliance once again. CJ, this has been really enlightening. And I really do think that a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to watch this and they're going to go, wow, these are not as overly complicated as I thought they were. Thinking of the process the same way they think about donor interactions. Why should a donor, what are your goals as a fundraiser or a fundraising organization? Who are you trying to attract as a donor? Who are you, what sort of specific service are you trying to fund? What sort of donation avenue or a sales avenue are you trying to get? And what kind of service after the donation are you going to get? These are things mentally that a lot of nonprofit people can understand, and you've made it so simple and clear into how to put that into website form. I think that's brilliant. But there's probably some people out there that will have additional questions and really want to go and pick a web geek's brain. How did they get a hold of you, and how can they get your book, be signed up for your podcast, follow you on social media, give me all of the goods? And of course, as always, we will link these things in the show notes and in the Facebook pages and on the social media stuff as well. But how did they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. I'm going to give you 3 links to check out. If you want to cut right to it and you're like, man, I want this guy to help us with our website right now, forget all the other learning and resources, you can come to gilbertstudios.com. That's my website for my web design business, gilbertstudios.com. We do help organizations and nonprofits with their websites, and we'd be happy to help you out. So come there to check out what we do with website design, gilbertstudios.com. But I also have a free gift for you to learn more about everything that we've been talking about. I created a 7-video course. It's at mywebsitesafari.com. mywebsitesafari.com. There's 7 videos. Each one is less than 10 minutes. And it's basically some of the points that we were talking about today, one piece at a time and in a linear structure, so you can just consume one piece, work on the exercises and the questions. The course is totally free, available to you and anyone you want to share it with. mywebsitesafari.com. And then finally, I also have a podcast. It's called Ask a Web Geek. And you can find all the details there at askawebgeek.com. Askawebgeek.com. While building websites, people had all these other questions. What do I do with LinkedIn? How do I upload this picture? Why am I getting this error when I'm trying to use this online tool? And those questions that I would get asked is now turned into my own show and my own podcast. We go weekly on Wednesdays into our Facebook group, and then we create a podcast and a video podcast from it, which then goes to YouTube and becomes a podcast. So however you join us, you can find all the links and details, askawebgeek.com.
I love it. CJ, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom and your enthusiasm about all things nerdy and geeky and making it sense for us, even in our nonprofit fundraising brains that don't necessarily understand it, but you've made it super clear and super simple. So get your butts over to gilbertstudios.com, askawebgeek.com. Find them on Facebook and Twitter and the rest of the things down there as well. And thank you so much for being a guest. I really do appreciate it. You've done some wonderful stuff today. I am ecstatic to go do stuff now on my website. Hooray!
We want you to do good better.
Yes, I love it. Have a great one. And again, check out more guest expert trainings and stuff coming up. Find us on YouTube. Follow us on social media. I know you already do. It's awesome. We'll talk to you guys again. Thanks for stopping by.